Okay, we're gonna keep it moving. So last summer, Nikhil Shah and I, shout out to Nikhil in the building, we released HNGRY's debut pilot about ghost kitchens. Travis Kalanick was not very happy about that. Here's a clip to frame the next panel.
My only concern is high-end restaurants and large corporations that back restaurants, restaurant groups, will thrive. And fast food, QSR, and models of that sustained delivery will also thrive in the future. It will eradicate the mom and pop and the middle mid-market restaurant. I want to be hopeful. I don't know how to preserve that.
I think that with the loss of the middle class of restaurants, it gives a guy like me who's got the breadth that I have the ability to, look, I can do my quick serve fun chefy burrito stuff, and I can do that delivery only. And then when I'm doing an experiential restaurant, quality of food is going to matter more. Quality of service is going to matter more. And so that playing field, which is, as far as I'm concerned, is so overpopulated right now, cats are going to drop.
These independent mom-and-pop restaurants account for a third of our entire dining landscape, employing over 3 million workers.
Where will a lot of these workers find jobs?
Look, steel mills used to have a lot of workers in them. Like this whole thing about like, we're gonna bring steel back. Like steel they sell as much steel now and produce as much steel now as they used to produce. They just do it with robots instead of employees, right? Because of labor unions and because of prices and tariffs and whatever the reason you want to give. So where are these guys going to find jobs? Somewhere else?
As virtual kitchens cannibalize the middle class of restaurants, we estimate that 15% of this workforce will find placement in this new paradigm as delivery and automation ramp up over the next decade.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to talk a lot about ghost kitchens in the next panel. So I'm very pleased to call up Dan Fleischman, a restaurant investor from the Kitchen Fund, to come explain the economic factors that are driving this very new trend. Dan? Right, I have to do this.
Hey guys, so while he's pulling up those slides, I'm Dan Fleischman. I am a restaurant investor at Kitchen Fund, and for us, we specialize in the emerging restaurant space. So I'm sure most of you know a lot of our brands, and it's probably a regular option for lunch or dinner. So Sweetgreen, Cava by Chloe Inde are all a few of the restaurant brands that we've invested in. And for us, it's making sure we can really support our portfolio company across the growth curve and really provide process and our playbook to help them grow and grow in a smart way. So a lot of that is, how do you think about growth and real estate, site selection, menu innovation, technology, of course, other growth channels, delivery, and then of course, ghost kitchen comes into play. So for us, we need to make sure we're helpful and insightful to our restaurant brands. So over the last months, we've spent a ton of time, and appreciate Corey from Zuul as well. We've gone to Zuul. We've met with a few of the other providers, such as Cloud Kitchen, which is Travis's, Cloud Kitchens, Kitchen United, Katopi, Virtual Kitchen & Co. And for us, we're not investors in any Cloud Kitchens or any ghost kitchens, but we're here to just help ensure that there's no confusion for operators and that they can really cut through all the noise and understand, what is this, what does it mean for us, and does it make sense for us? So I'll start with, what is a ghost kitchen? So there's really, at the basics, a ghost kitchen is a delivery-only facility, a commercial kitchen that you can put multiple kitchens in. Think maybe 5 to 45 or so kitchens. And right now, there's actually 2 different models that have emerged. There's one which is really the WeWork-like model in which it's a real estate service. A restaurant is given a 250 or so square foot kitchen. There's a hood and ventilation. There's some dry storage space, some other space for you to put the employees put their stuff, and sinks. But then you pay a monthly fee, and you still have to do your equipment. And that's, again, delivery only. And then the other one is actually more of a licensing or franchising-like, in which you're actually outsourcing your brand, your recipes, your know-how to another person, such as like a Topi or Virtual Kitchen & Co., and they're doing it all themselves. And then you receive a royalty, about 6 to 10 or so % on your sales for letting them do that. The other piece I'll quickly touch on, and just to really help to really make sure people understand the difference between a ghost kitchen and then what's branding or a virtual brand or a virtual kitchen. And this is really concepts that have no brick and mortar presence and are delivery only. And you really have a few different ways that these have sprouted up. It's either in a ghost kitchen, or it's, and I think Uber, we'll mention this later, they'll actually, existing operator with a brick and mortar presence will launch their own virtual brand. So maybe you're a burger concept, now you're gonna try and do wings or pizza or anything else. And I think actually Uber's helped create 4,000 or so of these since 2017. So interesting, and has its place. So I think the other thing to kind of always consider is, like, how did we get here? So I'm from Baltimore. It's even for Thanksgiving, ghost kitchens are coming up at the Thanksgiving table, and it's, how has this become such a prevalent topic? How is it getting all the media and press that it's currently getting? And I think you kind of look at just a few different components. There's, more thematically speaking, you have margin pressure. So labor is expensive and only getting more expensive. Not only is minimum wage up, but we're also in a very tight labor market. So minimum wage in the city might be 15, but to get someone to come to work, you're spending at least $17. Rent continues to increase. And then you're then looking at traffic declining across the sector. So how do we get growth? Off-premise is growing, delivery is growing. So all those combined, you now have a ton of venture investor and entrepreneurs looking to create ghost kitchens. Like, how do we solve this problem? How do we help restaurants? How do we really align with these trends? So over the last few years, we have $1 billion or so plus that's been poured into this. If you include Reef Technologies, which is SoftBank backed, another $1 billion, that's $2 billion or so. So a lot going on in the space. What I think is always kind of interesting is to help folks understand, okay, this is what a ghost kitchen is, but now what do the economics look like? And really thinking through, well, will this work? What do I need to believe in for the numbers to pencil? But also, where does that really fit within a prioritization? If we're franchising, should I be focusing on my franchise network or building new stores, or should I be doing ghost kitchen or a combination? So just how do we really quantify this? And I think what many operators really need to understand is, to get people in the door, you need 3 or so staff. You're paying them for 10 hours a day. You got 5 days a week. You end up spending probably $150 or so just in labor, and then your real estate service, in which you're paying a ghost kitchen provider, can really range, but maybe in a metro area such as New York, could be about 100 or so thousand. So it's how much volume do you need to do, and then taking into account that this is delivery only, which means that unless you own the channel, Sweetgreen's a very good example of someone who does, you're likely generating all your sales through a third-party delivery platform. So an Uber Eats, DoorDash, and that's another 25%. So it's how much do you really need to do in volume for this to work, and then can you own your channel or have an exclusivity with one of these providers so you can really reduce the cost of your customer acquisition costs, your cost of sales. And I think the way of just kind of setting this is, maybe you have a restaurant that does $1 million or so of delivery in New York City in Midtown. If you move down to Flatiron or Soho, what do you think you can do? And I think kind of the good number that we're kind of coming to, at least high level think through, if you're moving from to a new neighborhood, so you're not going from New York to LA, but you're maybe 10, 20, 30 blocks away, can you maybe do 50 to 75% or so of those sales? It's just kind of a good place to ground it. But I think if you look here, I know there's probably too many numbers up here, and I'm happy to always provide our template to folks later if they really want to dive into the numbers. But you kind of need to be doing 650 or so, or just to break even. So it's, can you get comfortable with what that number is, and then how to, does that make sense for you? Oh, and the other, actually, can you go back real quick? The other piece at the bottom I just want to point out was that that number does change some if you then can own a lot of the sales channel. So if you can actually own 50% of the sales channel, so instead of having everything come in through Grubhub or Seamless or DoorDash, in which you're paying 25%, if that's all coming through your Sweetgreen app or through Junzi or any of your direct channel, you now, that 650,000, which would have made you about 7,000, you're now making 56,000. So it's pretty big impact. So then it comes to the last piece of, okay, well, is a ghost kitchen right for me? And I think the way we now are really trying to make this as easy as possible for operators is really this feasibility checklist, which I think is, there's 3 different components here. One, do you have excess or latent demand? I think some good examples here. You might have a restaurant that for lunch you're just so slammed that you actually don't have the capacity and manpower to have delivery, so you turn it off. Or maybe you're using Postmates and you've realized that everyone's searching for your concept, but you don't have stores outside your core radius, and maybe you should expand. So you know there's demand there. The other piece is that, and which was the last point I made on the previous slide, was trying to do meaningful sales through your actual direct channel, or, and I think this is more short term, having a highly negotiated rate with one of your third-party delivery partners. And then the other, which I think is really important, is multiple day parts. Not just doing lunch or just dinner, being able to do lunch and dinner. Because if you're trying to do all that volume, that 650,000 I referenced before, just for lunch, 11 to 2, to do that, you're likely going to have to do 2 or 3 kitchens. And now you went from 100,000 of expense there to maybe 300,000. But so then the question, why use it? There's a pretty dynamic use case here. It's the extend your delivery radius. You think there's demand there. Let's reach our customers. Let's bring them the food that they love. There's a throughput constraint that I mentioned before. Maybe you want to test a new market. Now, I don't think this is definitive. You're a New York brand. You try Ghost Kitchen in LA. If it doesn't work, I don't think that is definitively going to say that you won't work in that market. Alternatively, if you're able to work in a ghost kitchen, you'll likely work in a brick and mortar presence. And there's a few others, but I think other pieces just to consider: cannibalizing existing stores. Need to be careful about that, because now not only are you cannibalizing your sales, but it actually becomes worse because you're taking from a fixed cost structure, you're now taking it to another entity, another operation, your ghost kitchen. So it's going to be worse to your margins out of your previous retail. So of course, speed to market, lower investment costs, and a few others. But I think I'm running out of time here, so you can always answer more questions later.
Same deal as last time. Can we do a quick Twitter bio, 140 character length introductions, please? Starting with Mr. Bo Peabody.
Is this on? Oh, it is on. Hi. It's on. My name is Bo Peabody. I'm co-founder and executive chairman of Seeded, which we can talk about later. I also do hospitality tech investing on behalf of Graycroft Partners, a local venture firm with offices here and in LA.
I am Corey Manicone, co-founder and CEO of Zuul. We build ghost kitchens, launched our first facility in September, and support incredible brands such as Junzi.
My name is Yong Zhao. I'm from China. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Junzi Kitchen. So we're a company doing modernization of Chinese restaurants in the US. Right now, currently operate 5 Junzi Kitchen restaurants featuring healthier and authentic Chinese food in a customization format. And we're working on more projects such as like renovation of traditional Chinese takeouts right now.
And you guys, if you had some of the delicious food back there, that was provided by Junzi. So thank you, Junzi Kitchen, for hooking it up.
Yeah, thank you. If you have some problem with it, let me know.
Dan, we'll skip over you, sorry. And then Kristen, let's get to you.
Great. Hi, I'm Kristen. I lead the virtual restaurants team at Uber Eats. Virtual restaurants, as Dan kindly introed, are data-driven, delivery-only concepts. Not always data-driven, but that is what Uber Eats is focused on.
Great. So I want to kick it off with Corey of Zuul Kitchen. So, you know, it's really hard when you're paying 25% commission, as we saw, to generate sales inside of a ghost kitchen. Who do you think are the winners and losers of this new paradigm, and how can you kind of help them own more of their consumer?
Yeah, I think, you know, great question. Obviously, it's challenging when a lot of your sales are going, you know, the third-party route. You know, that said, I think there's compelling opportunities to band together, having multiple brands under one roof. Exciting news that we'll be actually announcing on Monday, but we've acquired a small little tech company just south of us here in New York that's going to allow, for the first time ever, our brands to band together and allow consumers and offices the opportunity to order from multiple brands at once. And since we do have healthy margins on the real estate side of our business, we can effectively subsidize those a bit to put more money back in these guys' pockets. So I think ultimately that's where we're going to get more vertical integration and really folks that are helping the operators out get back to the roots there.
Yong, can you talk about, you know, you're doing a mix of delivery from your brick and mortar restaurant as well as a Zuul kitchen. You know, what's the opportunity you see with ghost kitchens that set it apart from doing delivery out of a traditional restaurant?
Well, I think the biggest advantage of ghost kitchens is that you don't have to pay too much of upfront capex, which is in New York, that's crazy, like how much you're gonna pay for how long it takes to build restaurants. And also how much burden you need to organize the whole organization of be able to maintain the kind of level of deliveries. In the Zuul kitchens, basically, you can operate with one person, a two-person, with support of centralization of production. So the labor control is much easier controlled and with different hours and up and downs. So to us, that's a kind of a much easier way to expand our market, test our market, especially covering the downtown side of Manhattan to be able to see how people perceive our food. And also because specifically Chinese food, it's interesting that Chinese food is such a big word universe of different kind of food. So to exist in the brick and mortar stores, you kind of want to constrain your stuff into something people can understand your food in that way, such that you're gonna say, oh, we're like dumpling place or things like that. But in the Zuul kitchens, you can basically create more virtual brands, such that you can create with different menus. You can each one become a brand itself. So your brand will build on your concept instead of a whole collection of a brand you want to wrap it into. So that create a more advantage, especially for a startup company like us. We have such a design power that we'll be able to design a brand quickly and make our food very consistent and put in the market. So that's a whole new business model. That's where we think has a lot of potential, especially ghost kitchen in China to Chinese food is very large. That's where probably the most inventive part is happening. So we see, all right, because that thing happens, it worked. So how about we use that right now, today in the US market?
Cool, and I want to bounce over to Kristen real quick. So with the ghost infrastructure coming, you know, ghost kitchen infrastructure becoming more widely available, how does food start looking more like branded content versus a traditional restaurant menu? How do you kind of abstract that away? And what data is informing those kinds of decisions?
Absolutely. So to answer the second question first, essentially with the Uber Eats massive eater base, we have a lot of information about what eaters are looking for in the app, and also can identify gaps where those things don't already exist on the platform. We can also tap into other competitive intelligence to see where the brick and mortar business actually just doesn't exist at all, and sort of work with our restaurant partners. We have over 100,000 of them in the US and Canada. And so tap into those kitchen spaces, a lot of which are underutilized, in order to spin up concepts that we know eaters are looking for and are not there. And then I can go into the second question, which is exciting. We launched 2 branded concepts last year, one with Rachel Ray and the other we Los Pollos Hermanos with, it was like a Breaking Bad partnership. And I think it's really interesting because with the rise in these 3P food delivery platforms, they're like a newsfeed. And from that perspective, I think a lot of brands are seeing this as advertising space. So traditionally, for the consumer, it makes sense that it's food advertising. I think some brands that are tangential to food and even potentially outside of food can provide some sort of, or see this as an advertising sort of opportunity and more of an experiential one for the customer.
Interesting. And so, and for now, it looks like you're saying you're going to partner with these restaurants rather than go head to head with Travis. What's kind of fueling that decision of, you know, partner with restaurants versus build the infrastructure from the ground up?
Yeah, I think from one perspective, obviously it's very capital intensive to start a kitchen and operate it. And I think Uber has traditionally tried to stay in the technology world. You know, we're not really restaurant experts, and because we have this massive network of brands that have that physical space on the platform, we think that's the better strategy for us at this point.
Okay, I want to kick it over to Bo. Bo, putting on your venture partner hat on for a second, have you looked at investing in any ghost kitchen businesses? What do you think are the key factors driving these crazy valuations of ghost kitchen providers that look like real estate plays on the surface? What is the hidden moonshot?
So in my investing and entrepreneurial life and hospitality tech, I have one simple rule, which is don't touch the food. The closer you get to the food, the worse the business is going to be. You know, I think a huge problem is the amount of private capital that's going into all of these concepts. And it's making it very difficult to actually sort through what the ultimate economic model will be, because capital is fueling, you know, consumers' desire for all these products. You know, we'll see where it shakes out. I think, you know, we're starting to see the bloom come off the rose. I've looked at some of the ghost kitchen stuff. You know, to us, the differentiation in the business model just isn't there. You know, it's relatively easy to spin up one of these businesses, no offense. You know, there's been lots of big businesses built on the back of what is ultimately a bit of a commodity. So it's not that it won't, someone's going to do it and it's going to make sense. But there's just an awful lot of competition, very hard to sort through, no clear winner, and a leader who has extraordinary capital raising abilities. So, you know, we're just a little gun shy until we see, you know, some of the dust settle.
Okay, cool. I want to kick it back to Kristen real quick. You know, looking at physical restaurants and delivery is becoming more and more bigger part of their sales, but that's lower margin. How do you ensure that the sales that you're driving them are actually incremental and not, you know, running them into the ground?
Yeah, so I think it is a challenge for sure for restaurant partners today. From you know, an experiential dining perspective, I think that your consumer is more likely not to be ordering that type of food on delivery because they want that experience of going into the restaurant. Like you mentioned in your opening presentation, it is more the fast casual restaurants that are getting hit here. So I think, you know, our angle certainly from a virtual restaurant's perspective is leaning into where we think there's excess demand in the marketplace and sort of capitalizing on that by reaching a new segment of customers that may be looking for something slightly different.
Okay. Dan, how have your brands from Sweetgreen to By Chloe managed those pickups and deliveries from a physical standpoint, and how much space are they allocating towards a sit-down versus the in this new paradigm as off-premise becomes bigger and bigger part of the mix?
So it's definitely something top of mind, and everyone's really trying to figure out what's the right store format, especially you might have had a store that was built 5 years ago, but now the market's very much shifted to more off-prem, delivery is getting bigger and bigger. What do you do? So take Sweetgreen, for example. They Outpost, that's worked out well. But they're still trying to figure out for their new store formats, same with By Chloe, it's how do you limit your store footprint, especially in high-rent urban markets such as in New York. So you're limiting your store footprint to really optimize for carry out or delivery, really broadly off-prem. I think the other point is then, if you are in this situation, a Sweetgreen or any other brand that has a ton of delivery volume, what do you then do with all the delivery drivers who come in? How is that impacting the in-store experience? Do you need a separate window for delivery drivers to come up to? Do you need just some other area, or really just to help with the ebbs and flows of the building, of your store format, so the customer isn't standing at a bar with 5 delivery drivers?
So a guy walks into a bar, or a guy walks into a Sweetgreen. Bo, kick it back to you. From a restaurant perspective, is seated the antidote to the growth in off-premise delivery and pickup of the millennial? If so, how do you ensure that coupons drive incremental sales rather than repeat discounts if the customer actually likes that restaurant?
Yeah, so Seated allows operators of full-service restaurants, cocktail bars, and lounges to stand up a pretty sophisticated rewards program to drive people back into the store, into the restaurant. We definitely are. I mean, I'm on the board of Boqueria, which is a Spanish tapas concept, but 7 restaurants now around the country. And when I looked at the numbers 2 years ago, when Jan de Roquefort, who runs the business, asked me to join the board to help him with hospitality tech, I noticed that frequency was going down. Still, people, good job attracting people, but frequency was going down. And I knew from my other life that the reason why frequency is going down is because people have a lot of options on delivery, meal kits, on-demand grocery, high-end QSR. And so I started Seated to just have something on the other side, because the convenience is what drives those other things, and we wanted something that would be as compelling to get you to take one extra night a month that you might do one of those things. We're all going to do those things. I love those things. It's not against them, but take one extra night a month and actually go back into the restaurant and have the experience that the chef and the restaurateur wanted you to have and intended you to have. So that's what Seated is about. We definitely, the point about frequency, if you keep coming back to the restauranт, or you keep, because the restaurant pays us a commission and we use that to reward you, we have built a lot of things into the product to allow restaurateurs to sort of gauge what the commission they're paying and the reward they're offering. First, they decide the commission. We don't dictate it, and that commission dictates the reward. Bigger commission, bigger reward, smaller commission, smaller reward. So that's going to drive different volume. But they can do, the second time you come in, you get less reward. The third time you come in, you get less reward. So there's all bunch of dynamic pricing levers built into the product to allow operators and for us to help operators to drive the type of demand at the time they need it, and not to constantly pay the same commission over and over again if they've done their job and given you a great experience and you want to come back because you had a great experience, not necessarily because you need a reward.
Okay, awesome. Corey, how important is the physical retail experience to the success of delivery? Meaning, can virtual-only tenants succeed without a physical touch point? And then maybe second to that, also, can you talk about if you plan to offer like a sit-down kiosk, kitchen united-like experience in the front of house of your warehouses?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Candidly, I think the brick and mortar for the restaurant today is incredibly important as the market stands today. I think it's unfortunate, but it's also a reality that restaurants, brick and mortar is their most effective means of marketing. It's certainly their most expensive, to Yong's point. The CapEx needed to stand that up, certainly here in New York, is quite expensive. But unequivocally across the board, it is the most effective means of marketing for a restaurant. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. I think we'll start to see less brick and mortars throughout the city and more delivery appendages, hopefully in a Zuul around the city, supporting the off-prem standpoint. But to your point on the second question, we're exploring anything we can to ensure that our brands are successful. We're we're not their landlord, we're their partner. I wash his dishes for him or equipment. We run the food from the down the corridor to the front, and then we actually act as a liaison between the brands and the couriers. So we're positioning ourselves as a true operational partner. So if having a sit down or dine in experience means more revenue for Yong, we're certainly going to explore it.
Do you think? What do you think about virtual only brands? Do they have a chance to succeed without having a brick and mortar? Like, do you think if I were to go in there and be like, this is Matt's crazy pizza, it's fermented sourdough starter, can I succeed?
Well, one, I think you're on to something. Two, though, I think it's incredibly challenging. I think it goes back to the brick and mortar, being an effective means of marketing. That said, I think it makes a lot of sense to Yong's points earlier to have these, virtual brands on top of your actual brand. So, it allows you to cross-utilize products across the board. You're getting better throughput from your lower labor model that exists inside of your kitchen. So, it behooves you, if you've got cheese and bread, not to throw up a grilled cheese, concept. That incremental sales there doesn't really, your OpEx doesn't go up because of it. So, as it stands today, I think they're complementary to your actual brand. And we could see that change in the future, but as it stands today, yeah.
Okay, cool. I want to transition this panel over to my final topic, which is the buzzword omni-channel. I want to talk about Yong because he's got an interesting omni-channel strategy. From what I understand, Yong is going to buy mom-and-pop Chinese restaurants in the burbs and convert them into kind of modern pickup and delivery joints. And then he's also going to have his big box retail, like you see in Bryant Park and the West Village. And then he's also doing the stuff with Corey that he talked about. So can you talk about how do each of these strategies come together to build density in a market, and how do you leverage data across all of them to better understand your customer?
Sure. I think Chinese food in America have been there for 150 years. It's one of the OG kind of delivery food, like ghost kitchens, right? So a lot of Chinese restaurants operate before the Uber.
Bigger than pizza.
Yeah, well, same. I think similar. Like before, yeah. I think before the Uber Eats kind of Grubhub era, Chinese people deliver their food to the people, right? But what's behind it is kind of self-exploitation of the immigrants that work hard. They do something extra to make sure their food delivered there with convenience and cheap. So, but what's behind it is basically 200 years of suffering of Asia that can make their people can suffer that here. It's because of less suffering than if you get at home, right? So what's behind it today is like the Asia part is not that suffering anymore. And then you can, like China developed from like 300 GDP per capita in 1990 to today is $10,000. 600 million people get out of poverty, which means they are less intent to come to America or anywhere else that developed world to sell their food cheap. So they do all the hard labors but sell same price as the Philippine burgers. That's why Chinese food in America have a huge problem because they cannot find the future generation of Chinese restaurant operators. Their son and daughter doesn't want to take it, and the current owner got too old for this, and there are no new immigrants from China. So we had to find a way to either change the price of a lot of ethnic food or change the complexity of making this food. So that's a fundamental of the modernization of Chinese food means. And then seeing the Junzi kitchen today is kind of one solution is finding kind of Chinesefication American fast casual restaurants. Because fast casual restaurants itself, cost structures works, and then you find the Chinese content fit in that. But another solution potential is finding a simplification, finding automation, finding centralization production in this most spread out Chinese restaurant form, which is Chinese takeout. There's about 30,000 Chinese takeout in America. Every neighborhood has something like that. Very looking similar. And all these family operated people, they want to retire. And they're selling their restaurant really cheap and they want to take it. So now it's going to find this exit strategy for these people. In the meantime, give a continuity of the local community's demand of this Chinese affordable food takeout. Like that's somewhere you get fried chicken because there are no KFC sometimes, right? They get from Chinese takeouts. So that becomes such a kind of vibrant, important, organic part of the community serving the food. But also, Chinese food has been perceived as unhealthy. But that's not a fault of Chinese food because that created in the 80s. In the 80s, people want that kind of food. But now they haven't been changing for like 30 years because lacking of new brand, new ideas. But it's been there in China. There are ghost kitchens. There's kind of new way deliveries. There's all kind of things happening that we're seeing there's this thing we learn directly from China to here and find the new opportunities. This $30 billion market for Chinese food. And in the future, stylish market so that you have more rooms and not like competing with salad space. There's so many salad brands right now. They have to find new ways competing with each other. Like even dig in and they're competing with each other with salad and stuff. So, and that's hard part. That's what we think. Omnichannel Chinese food is such a unique opportunity for a lot of food industry that in the future become this kind of spread out kind of strategies of building this small takeouts. 80% of their sales off premises, and more than 95% of their food is customers local people. It's not like Chinese. So that's what we're seeing in the future.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what I don't quite get about ghost kitchens, and maybe you can, is that Chinese food restaurants and pizza restaurants in smaller towns have been doing this ghost kitchen thing for a long time, right? I mean, they're serving everything from pizza to chicken fingers to whatever people want, and half the people who, or more than half the people who order the food have never been there. So, you know, I don't know why this, I mean, it's been done and it's been proven that it works, but that it's, you know, a hard business to scale.
I mean, I can comment quickly about that. It's just because the Chinese delivery guys, their price is low. Right now, there's no new that's kind of low price delivery cost, right? You have to find a new future as a big consolidation of these kind of demands and supplies that you can, every time you deliver, not just one items for the full family with one bikers. Like right now, you need to find a bunch of things together. So that's going to, in the future, ghost kitchen very important.
I want to kind of start wrapping up here so we can get to Q&A. So last question goes to Kristen. You know, how do restaurateurs, you know, how should they look at deploying a virtual concept from an existing brick and mortar versus a dedicated ghost kitchen, which we've seen as, you know, quite an investment?
Yeah, so I think that they're two slightly different strategies. I think obviously the ghost kitchen strategy is capital intensive, but it is a good way for restaurants to expand as well. And there are actually a couple companies that are in the ghost kitchen space that will operate concepts on behalf of the restaurant, more of like a franchise model. So I think if you wanted a capital light model version of that, restaurants could actually just have someone, you know, another ghost kitchen company prepare the food in another territory where they may not traditionally have expanded to because of the, you know, capital outlay. In terms of a virtual concept, I actually think this is a great testing ground before making that big capital decision that a lot of restaurants are using. If you want to test out whether a certain concept is going to be successful in a delivery-only environment, I think the best way to do it is in existing kitchen space that you're already paying for. And so we see a lot of restaurants experimenting with that as well.
Okay, cool. So give everyone, I would like you to give a big round of applause for this panel. Very cool panel. Hello? Oh, it works. Very, very cool panel. Okay, so now let's kick it off to Q&A. Raise your hand. Kit will come through with the mic. My mic.
I was wondering, with the delivery like becoming more and more popular, and I do see, I think like you guys were saying that you still need the regular brick and mortar to first have people be aware of who you are, right? And then the ghost kitchens would work. So you would need both, but then like delivery is definitely becoming more popular. So how much like I mean, right now there's a lot of vacancies in the in the retail market, like in New York City, like a lot of vacant spaces. Do you see that increasing from your perspective, or do you see that decreasing or staying the same?
It's a great question. I wish I had that crystal ball. That said, I think when you take a step back and really look at just the core problem, consumer eating habits are changing. It's, to your point, it's no secret, off-prem, specifically delivery is increasing. And there's certainly a ton of data out there to support it. So when you take a step back and you look at the incredibly archaic and challenging restaurant industry as it stands today, there's now this whole new problem that the infrastructure was never built with intent of supporting off-premise, which is why it's been set up here earlier that, you walk into a Just Salad and you have to swim through a sea of couriers to get to the front and order, right? So it impedes on the better margin business technically. So I think as we see delivery continue to take off, the vacancies, unfortunately, I do think we'll see that those continue to stay where they're at. But I do see, is there a world that exists where we go look at one of those restaurants and repurpose it because we've got a supply issue, in our first kitchen. So there's a lot of things, that I think we'll see that happen. But I think kind of the infrastructure piece, we're going to see it repurposed throughout major urban markets, starting here in New York. Totally.
One or two more questions.
Hi, my question is for Bo, actually. I am a pretty avid seated user. I'm over here. Hi. I'm a pretty avid seated user, but I can't help as someone who works and lives in kind of a business model innovation and product service innovation mindset of how in the world are you making money from this? I pay for dinner on behalf of someone at work, or I take my friends out to dinner, and I'm getting so much money back. And I can't but help to think about something we haven't spoken a lot about tonight is privacy, data privacy. What data are you collecting from me when I get all of my money back from dinner? I just have to know at least a little bit of what's happening here.
It's funny. I mean, I'm really glad that somebody asked this question because the biggest comment we get about seated is like, it's too good to be true. I go out to a restaurant, I spend $100 and I get, $20 back that I can spend at Amazon or Uber or Starbucks or SoulCycle. It's the economics of incrementality, right? The thing that kills restaurants, full service restaurants, is empty seats, right? I've been in the restaurant business as an operator for 23 years. Every single night when my restaurant opens, I know that the seat cost me $14 to have it sit there, right? So I need to put someone in that seat and get that $14 back before I start making any profit, right? So everybody talks about profit margins are only 10%. Profit margins are zero until you cover your fixed costs. So what we're doing is we're giving you an incentive to fill that empty seat. And we're giving you different incentives depending on the time when we know the seat is empty. Because if you go and fill an empty seat, the only incremental cost to the restaurant is the cost of the food on the plate, which is, depending on the service format and the cuisine format, is somewhere between 15 and maybe 25 or 30 at the highest end % of the bill. So if the restaurant is spending 25% on the food, is giving us 25% to get you in the door, and we're giving you 20 of that 25, the restaurant's still keeping 50, which is $50 more than they would have had if you hadn't gone there. And that's why the economics of it work. And then when we give you that money and you go spend it at Uber, we make money there too. Because we don't buy Uber dollars for $1, we buy them for 95 cents. And we buy Nike dollars for 90 cents and L Bean dollars for 80 cents. And so there's two sides to the marketplace where we make money. And as long as we can prove to the restaurants that we're filling seats, and national occupancy rates at full service restaurants right now, wait for it, are 46%. They all have empty seats. And when you walk into a restaurant and it looks full, it's 80% full, trust me. It's not 100% full. And it looks full, and it feels full, but there's still a lot of empty seats in that place. And there's probably 24 restaurants in this town that are legitimately full all the time. And we all know what they are. Everyone else has seats. So you look on the Seated app, you see Nobu, you see, Boqueria, you see incredible brands, right? Because they all have empty seats, and they would rather you go in and sit down and order alcohol, and your average order value when you sit in that restaurant is 3 times what it is when you do delivery, right? So their incentive is huge to get you to come in. And that Seated is the only thing that truly is giving you an incentive that's big enough to get you off your couch and into a restaurant versus staying at home and ordering delivery or doing something else.
Wow, 46%. That's insane.
It's insane. And it's getting worse because people have all these other options. So we're just trying to fight against it.
Before we head into the next question, I just would like to give Dan the opportunity to provide the restaurant perspective to this equation.
On this equation? So obviously, if it's incremental, that's awesome. If you can get them in, I guess my question would be, and especially from a restaurant operator, would be to really understand, is it incremental, and then are these people coming back? I kind of think of it as ritual is a little different, but I know we've trialed that before in some of our brands, and we had a great pickup in April, the month in which we tried it, but then they all fell off the following month in May. So it's really, can we acquire those customers? Are they going to come back? And are they coming back and paying full freight, or now are they every time coming back and paying 25%?
Okay, cool. Let's get to the next question.
Hey guys, congrats on all your success. Thank you for everything. Mr. Peabody, I downloaded your app like 2 weeks ago. Good job. My question is, if you own a restaurant in the city that is only open at night and you want to lease it out to somebody for like a ghost kitchen, how do you connect with somebody that way? Is there any way to go ahead and do that, or it's just all the time they need to use that kitchen? Like, for example, like 7 to 4 before the restaurant opens.
Sure. Yeah, I'll take this one if you guys don't mind. So I explored that exact model because it turns out building 9 kitchens across 5,000 square feet in Soho is incredibly challenging and expensive. That said, that Airbnb for kitchens, right, is in theory what you're talking about. The health department's not a fan of that. When you think about it, if you were to go in and operate on that, within that kitchen, you're operating under the umbrella of that actual operator. So in the event there's a rat that runs by, whose fault is that, right? There's a lot of gray area there that one day could work, but unfortunately right now there's a lot of constraints right now that make it a very big uphill battle.
So there's actually, I think I came across a company actually based in New York. I think it's called Kettle Space, and they're actually trying to do something similar in which they're trying to utilize that restaurant space that you're not using during off hours, or maybe you just have extra space you want to use. And what they're doing is giving operators an opportunity to try and make some extra money. And what they do is it's essentially like a co-working space for contractors and any other individuals to come in and they can work there. I think there's definitely constraints around hours of operation, like what are those people really getting? Or you get a power cord, is there coffee, like what else? And I mean, but it's definitely something worth considering.
Okay, I want to give everybody enough time to mingle, because that's what we're here for, really, right? So once again, please give a big round of applause and thank you to our amazing lineup of panelists. You were great. And you, the audience, I told you I was going to provoke. So if you felt something, then great. We should want to be provoked because that is ultimately why we are here. So if you're hungry to learn more, hungry for more, please visit hungry.tv and sign up for the email updates. Feel free to hang around for the next 30 or so minutes and get to know everyone. Signing off for now, I'm Matt Newberg. Thanks again. Good night.